Hi guys, today I wanted to do the video I asked you guys about in a vlog a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if YouTube is gonna let me post this, but if you're seeing it now, then obviously they did. This video is gonna be a little confusing maybe. I hope it's not. I hope I can get everything I want to say across in a coherent way. This would be much easier for me to do in a blog post, but not all of you read my blog, so I thought this kind of would get to a bigger audience and it would be easier for me to kind of get what I want to say out there. I know I'm gonna get hate probably on this and stuff like that, but moving forward, I did do a video similar to this back in October, November. I will link that below along with the blog post that went along with that. It was kind of me ranting about what was going on in the country. And that's sort of what this is, but it's a bit more, I don't know, I'm not really sure what it is. I'm hoping that most of you are on my side of this, but I'm also kind of not, because the thing is, when you make videos like this, when celebrities post tweets and Instagrams and make videos and talk about these topics, the people who listen and who appreciate and who take the time out to hear what the person has to say are the ones that already kind of support it. So I'm assuming the majority of the people who watch this video, the most of you that are already my viewers, are probably already on, like, agreeing with what I'm saying, hopefully anyway. The people who don't, who I kind of want to get this across to, are the ones that aren't gonna watch this. They're the ones that don't take the time out to care, and I'm gonna get into that more later. I'm kind of getting off topic. This video is just kind of me talking about the current climate of our country, from, I guess, politics to social aspects, and just like what our society seems like right now, and kind of my opinions on it. And I hope it doesn't bore you, and I hope it doesn't confuse you. So it's probably gonna be decently long because I took a lot of notes so I wouldn't forget anything. If you're interested in kind of hearing what I have to say about this and stuff, then please keep on watching. So I don't expect this video to change anyone's mind. I wish it would. Most people have their minds made up and they're pretty stubborn about it, but maybe it'll open someone's eyes. Maybe it'll make one of you send this to one of your friends maybe who you kind of have had issues with because of their opinions and their beliefs and things. And I know I've had strained relationships with people, from family to friends to anything, just because of what's going on in this country right now. And you know, it's so crazy to think that before you could say, oh, I'm Democrat, or oh, I'm Republican, and it wasn't that big of a deal, kind of. You could think, okay, like, unless you're really into politics, I guess. Like, for me, that wasn't something that really altered my life. But now it does, and it's not just like saying what party you're part of, but your opinion on the election changes relationships. Like, I'm sure there's people who don't even speak to each other based on this election, because it altered so much more than what it should have. And it did kind of open everyone's eyes, and I don't know, maybe I was just super naive before to think that things were better off than they obviously are, but it's just, this election, it separated people. But my biggest point kind of in this video is to talk about how one person's life doesn't outweigh the other. And I think that's something that people aren't getting. You know, whether it's a baby who's unborn's life outweighing the mother's, or if it's someone from a different religion outweighing someone who's Christian, or if it's someone from another country outweighing someone from America. Why does their life matter more? Why? These people have families. All these people have families, have people who care about them. They care about people. So what makes someone's life more worthy of freedom or having rights? It doesn't. And that's kind of where my biggest issues lie. I mean, I have plenty of other issues that I'll get to, but that's just something I don't understand. Like, no matter what party you're a part of, and no matter kind of what you're more interested in hearing about, and what you want your taxes to go toward, and things like that, I just don't understand how people could not care about other people. That's what I don't get. Like, if you don't, you know, there's people who don't believe that being trans is okay, or, which is kind of just insane, but there's people who don't believe that. There's people who think that being gay isn't okay, and having abortions isn't okay, and all these other things. But how could you just not care about someone who needs help? There's people who think that people from a different religion, just because they believe something different, they should be penalized. No matter what your belief system is, Other people matter. How could you look at someone in need and not help them just simply because of the color of their skin or how much money they make or what country they're from? Like, it makes no sense to me. So one of the things that I kind of came up with, like a metaphor, I guess, not even a metaphor, it's pretty straightforward. But, so I was thinking, with all these situations, I mean, people don't want to serve someone from another religion in a restaurant, and they don't want to, you know, offer their services to someone because they're gay. Like, those things really bother me, obviously, and I'm sure they bother a lot of you. But let's think of this, let's imagine this happening. Not a great thing, but let's say there's a white man, okay? Maybe he's middle-aged, he's Republican, he's Christian, he doesn't believe in abortion, he doesn't think it should be allowed, he doesn't believe in birth control, he doesn't believe in gay marriage, doesn't think that everyone should have affordable health care, maybe he doesn't believe in global warming, he doesn't want immigrants in this country, even though every single person in this country is an immigrant, if you didn't know. I know those are all kind of stereotypical things, but just take it for the sake of what I'm trying to do right now. So say we have that person, and then on the other side we have a woman from Mexico. She's maybe in her mid-20s, maybe she's had an abortion, she supports women's rights and LGBTQ rights, and she recycles and has solar panels and is worried about the environment, okay? And these two people are completely different. She's Democrat and she supports the Women's March, and these two people believe in so many different things, and they would clash on any topic, just about. But say they're both in a bank, in a hostage situation, and they're both in danger. Maybe they're not going to talk the whole time, but is one of them going to put the other one in front of the line of gunfire? Maybe. And that's what really bothers me. You know, if one of them got shot, would the other one not step up and help them? Would the one who got shot not want help from the other person just because they're so different from them? I mean, I would love to say no. I would love to say that even though these people disagree so much on so many different things, that when it matters, they're both just two humans and they need help and they can help one another. And I would like to say that in no way in hell would those people turn each other away at their time of need, right in front of each other, just because of their differences. But based on what I've seen in this country and on the news and online in the last few months, I could see either one of those people choosing to die over accepting help from the other person. And I don't know that that's true. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, then wonderful. But I'm sure that a lot of you can picture someone in your life, someone you've seen on the news, someone you've heard speak publicly, who would turn down that help, or even accept help from the other person but wouldn't help them. And I think that that's sad, and that's terrible. Some people would let their stubbornness and their pride and their ignorance get in the way of someone's life. And I just think that that's crazy, and I think that it happens all the time. And I that's something I cannot wrap my head around, and I just don't understand. I mean, no matter what your beliefs are, no matter what you think is okay and what you think is not okay, there's a fact that this person is a living person. This person is a person. They're just a person. Like, and you could just not care. You could look someone in the eye and just not care. Someone who is being turned away from seeing their family. Someone who been in a sexual assault situation and is now pregnant, and how could you put them through 9 months of pregnancy and then childbirth, and they had already gone through so much, and they have to go through this now because they're not allowed to have an abortion? I mean, I just don't get how someone could look at these people who need help and not want to help them. People are putting their prejudices and their fears above their humanity, and that's what's so scary about it, is that you kind of always think that that's not going to happen. You know, we know we have problems, you know, you kind of think that, look at your family or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your friends, and you know you have drama, but you know when you need it, they're there. And that's something that I think a lot of people think is just going to happen for the rest of the world, but it's not. You think that just because certain countries don't have the same beliefs, or they're run a different way, or different religions believe in different things, that we're all gonna just come together because that's what's important at the end of the day. And the thing is, I would love to believe that, and that's a nice thought, but it seems like that's not really what's happening right now, and that's not something that's going to happen because people are putting their fears and their ignorance and just their not knowing anything above people, and that's not okay. And if I'm wrong, and in a hostage situation, those two different people who are so unbelievably different would actually help each other, then why aren't we doing that now? Why aren't we coming together with the people who disagree with us and thinking, let's just look at the facts, the true, actual, real facts, and just come to a conclusion, come to an understanding, work this out. I don't understand how people could be so far into their own minds, and regardless of your beliefs, what gives people the right to take rights away from others? And that's something that I will never understand. This is something I guess I have to put forward in this video. Obviously, everyone has the right to their own opinion and their own beliefs, and I don't want to force my beliefs on anyone, and I don't think anyone should do that at all. Share and talk and great, but I think you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to force your opinion onto other people. And that's what's happening in the government right now. And that's something that blows my mind, is that people who may, be really on one side of the fence or really on the other seem to think that they're allowed to force their agenda, their beliefs, their prejudices onto everyone. They think every single person in this entire country should believe in the same thing. And that's insane. I think that everyone in the entire country should just want to do what's right. And I know people have a different opinion of what's right and what's wrong, but there's facts of what's right and wrong. And if you're helping people, how could you be doing something wrong? And it bothers me so much that these people can look at someone and just judge them so harshly without knowing them, and just judge them so harshly without knowing what they've been through, and they just want to put their own agenda onto everyone. How could you expect so many people who are so unbelievably different just to all follow one way of thinking? It's not right. Just because abortion is legal for the people who need it doesn't mean that someone who's against it has to have an abortion. No one's forcing you to go and do that. So for example, this is something I'm sharing very personal to myself, and I hope I don't get attacked for it, but in high school and even early college, I thought that abortion was wrong. I thought that unless, there was extenuating circumstances such as sexual assault or health risks, that people shouldn't get an abortion. They should be smart enough to use birth control. And obviously, I was pretty naive, because that's just not the way it works. Some people don't even have access to it or just aren't, aware. I'm really lucky that I've never had to be in a situation where I've had to make that kind of a choice for myself. But no matter what I would do, I don't know what I would do, obviously, until I was in that situation, and no one else is either. So all those people in the world who seem to be so pro-life, okay, but you don't know what you would do unless you were in that situation. You can swear to the end of the earth that you would never have an abortion, but until you are in a sexual assault and end up being pregnant and have to make up your mind and make that choice, you don't know what you would do until you're in that position. So what gives you the right to make that decision for someone else who needs it? No matter what my beliefs are or anyone else's beliefs, no matter what I would do in that situation, what does that matter to someone else? That's something that seems to be happening right now in this country a lot, is one person's beliefs are affecting other people whose decisions wouldn't affect anyone. If someone, I don't know, got pregnant accidentally, couldn't afford to have a baby or even go through the pregnancy, and they wanted to have an abortion, how does that affect me or anyone else? How would that affect someone who is so pro-life? How does just allowing this person to do what's right for them affect someone else? It doesn't. Just like how does gay marriage affect people who aren't gay? If you're married and you have your own family, how does that affect you and your life and your family? Does it ruin your life? Does helping these people make a life for themselves and do something that they want and need affect you? It doesn't. So what is it? Why do you feel that you have a say in these people's life decisions? When I say that, I'm thankful that I've never had to make the decision to have an abortion or not. I am so thankful and so lucky that I've never had to be in that situation, but I would hate to be in that situation and have the choice taken away from me and have the law or someone who has nothing to do with me in my life make that decision for me. That's not okay. It's not acceptable. It's you could take all the precautions, and I don't think that these people are understanding that, but you can take all the precautions necessary and still get pregnant. And it can really, obviously pregnancy affects your life more than a lot of the people who are pro-life understand. It's just like people who wanted to preach abstinence in schools. People who want to say, no, you shouldn't teach kids about birth control, only teach them about abstinence. I mean, you can see, I'm sure there's plenty of statistics online that schools that teach abstinence have a way higher rate of STDs and pregnancies because they're not being taught the right way to use protection. But in schools that do teach the right way to use protection, probably have a lot lower rate of pregnancy and STDs because no matter what you teach them, sex isn't going to stop happening. Just like no matter if you give people access to birth control for free, they're not going to stop having sex. There's just going to be more risk. And no matter what these people want to happen, no matter what these pro-life and anti birth control people expect to happen, that's not the way the world works. And we can look at the history. We can look at the straight up facts and see that that's what's happened. And these people just can't seem to wrap their head around the truth. And it's sick, and it's so wrong to cut someone else off from something that they might need just because you don't want to agree with it. When it comes to things like this that have no negative effect, that's what drives me crazy. I mean, you know, I know it's hard to kind of compare this, and I know a lot of people say, well, what about all the people who are so liberal and, you know, they want to change our lives and affect our lives by, you know, not letting people make coats out of real animal fur, or, you know, make everything so energy efficient and eco-friendly. And I can see people's point on the other side, the opposite side of me, who say things like that, but the things that I feel like a lot of liberals are against are things that aren't, if they're taken away, they're not going to badly affect someone's life. The things they're doing now are harming people. And the things that the people on the other side, like the very conservative people, want to take away from the liberals is just rights and freedoms and things that aren't negatively affecting them. They're not negatively affecting anyone. They're saving people's lives, and they're helping people, and they're giving them what they need. So why would you want to take that away from someone? No matter if you like them or not. I mean, I've hated people in my life, for sure, but I would never wish bad upon them. And that seems to be what this country is doing now. They're wishing bad upon someone just because they don't like them. What? You can believe whatever you want, but you can't force someone else to believe what you want them to believe. And just because you take away access to health care and birth control and abortions in this country doesn't mean the need is gone. Doesn't mean people stop needing freedom and stop needing access to health care and birth control. It's never going to go away. So by taking away the access and this sanctuary that's helping people, you're not taking away the problem. You're just causing more. And I don't get how people don't see that. There is no way ever in the history that we've seen this, or in the future that anyone could foresee, that everyone in this world or in this country will have the same beliefs and all follow one thought and one way of thinking. Never will it happen. So why not leave the options available for those who need it? The people who don't need these options, the people who don't want to, you know, interact with these options or have anything to do with them, don't have to. It's not forced upon everyone. This isn't a law that says you have to have an abortion in your life. It's a law that says those who need it can have it. And that's what I don't understand. Why would you want to take that freedom and that safety and that protection away from someone who needs it? What I think the real problem here isn't just people thinking one way or another and people disagreeing and, you know, looking at the facts and just coming up with a different conclusion. That's not what's happening. What's happening is there's the people who agree with the Women's March, what the Women's March promotes and what, you know, liberals support. And then there's the conservatives, and I can't fathom one person who disagrees with the Women's March, who has facts on their side. Not one. I can't fathom it. Maybe that's just the way my brain works. But I can't imagine these people looking at the real facts and then still coming to the same conclusion. It just makes no sense to me. So what my assumption is that all these people who are against the Women's March and against, you know, rights for everyone is not listening. They're just not listening. Because I know for a fact, like I said in the beginning of this video, those people who are against what I have to say aren't listening to what I have to say. It's not that they're just listening. It's not like any of those people, I swear. Not one person who's against what I have to say is going to watch this whole video through, actually listen and comprehend what I'm saying, and then have a mean thing to say, because I don't get how that could even happen. I don't get how someone could actually, hear what I have to say, hear what the celebrities have to say, and just argue with it, because it's so rational, and it's so reasonable, and it's so just good for people in general. And how could you argue with that? How could you argue with something that is clearly pro-people? Not one person over the other people, but just pro-people. I have no words to even try to begin to understand that, because there are zero facts on the side of the other people that are against what I have to say, and it blows my mind. They just don't listen. And I think these are the people who are just blind to reason. They're blind to understanding. They, take one thing and they go with it, and they use their ignorance and their fear and just the things that they don't learn about. Maybe they're not cultured, or they just don't understand, I guess, what other people have been through, and I don't either. I mean, I don't understand what all the people who I want to help have been through. How could I? But I see them, and I think, wow, they've been through that and they're making it. So why wouldn't I want to help them, because I'm so lucky to not have to have been through that? And I don't see how other people could just not have that heart. And obviously there's mean people in the world, and I might sound super naive, but you can look at the facts, and whether it's about, global warming and climate change or immigration or anything, just look at the facts. Just look at the real, true, honest facts. But that's the thing, is that these people don't do that. These are the people who back months ago said, oh, yeah, he can never do all the things that he says he's going to do, or that'll never happen, he's just going to shake things up, it's just going to be different, he'll never do that, I just agree with him because I'm so against her. Those are the people who didn't listen. Those are the people who now are not even admitting that they were wrong. Those are the people who now aren't watching the news and, going online and reading all this information because they don't want to hear it, they don't want to see it, they're just denying the fact that they had a hand in what is happening right now, and all the people who are suffering and in so much fear because their freedoms and their rights are being taken away without their okay. And the people who put that into position and let this happen, those are the people who either are still supporting it for some crazy reason, or have backed off and don't want to say anything and feel terrible but won't admit it, because how could they be wrong? How could they have known, how could they have known that he was going to do all the things he said he was going to do? Well, if they listened to our side, if they even listened to his side and actually listened and didn't just get brainwashed, maybe it wouldn't have happened. And obviously we can't change that now. And what bothers me a lot is that many of the people who are so conservative and so against what I stand for aren't actually practicing what they preach. They might preach, pro-life and against anyone who's different and liberal, but they are the same people who probably had abortions in secret. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they're the ones who are doing it in secret. They're the ones who hire illegal immigrants and do all of the things that they're so against, but they hide it. And I think that that's so wrong. I think that that's so judgmental and hypocritical and wrong. And I'm not asking for people to be perfect, and obviously that's not, where I'm trying to come from. I'm not saying everyone has to be perfect and help everyone and, just care about others more than themselves, but, people are just taking these things because this is maybe how they were raised, or what they've been told to believe, or what they, I don't know, which is something that they don't understand, so that instead of trying to understand it, they're just taking a really harsh judgment, and that makes no sense. Those people who marched and supported the marches and agree with what I'm saying aren't just supporting these topics, and aren't just supporting rights and supporting liberal ideals, but they're supporting people. The Women's March was people supporting people. People who need the support, and people who are against it seem to be against people. And maybe they're just selfish or just worried about themselves and, their own family. And I get it, and I get that people, the people who are more worried about our country than other countries, and I get that, like, for sure, just like in your family, you take care of your family, but you have to take care of yourself first, or how are you going to take care of someone else? I get it, that makes sense, for sure, but just because we may have to put ourselves first doesn't mean we can't care about others at all. And, maybe put your own well-being first, but your own well-being doesn't get affected by someone else's well-being necessarily. I hope that what I just said you understand. But yes, maybe we can put the healthcare of our country first, and the economy of our country first. Yes, okay, those things make sense, but the environment doesn't just affect us, it affects everyone, and no matter how much people want to deny it, it's a straight up fact. You cannot argue with facts, science, and those things have to matter. And helping other people in other countries might seem like, oh, well, we just worry about ourselves first, but what makes our American lives so much more worthy than someone from another country? What makes a Christian life more valuable than someone who's Muslim? Nothing. That's the answer. And I know some people, and I think that they commented this on my last video about the topic, will say, tough, this is the situation, now get over it. But yet, when it's not this situation, when it's a situation against them, when it's, more of a liberal kind of way, those people can't get over it. They're still, pro-life and against abortion and against immigrants and against gay marriage. And so how we're just supposed to sit back and be silenced and be suppressed. But if what's happening in the world is against what you want, you're not going to expect us to, we shouldn't expect you to just sit down and do nothing, right? So it's okay for you to fight for what you believe in, but it's not okay for someone like me to fight for what I believe in. And, I get it. This is our government. This is what's happening right now, and I get it, and I have to accept that, and there's nothing we can do to change the past. And yeah, that's true. I get it. I know this is our government. I've accepted that, and it sucks. I've accepted that it sucks. And, maybe we can't change the past. Maybe we can't go back to a couple months ago and change what happened. But what we can do is look at the past, look at the facts, look at the history of our country and other countries and just world history in general, and see what's happened and see what's done better and what has been considered a success. And I wouldn't say that, what's happening right now is a success when you look at the grand scheme of things. I'd say it's a huge failure. It's bad for people. It's bad for the majority of people. And it's bad for the people who need help. And what makes me so sick is that not only is this person who's a notorious pig the person who's been sworn to protect us, but the person who's been sworn to protect us is lying to us constantly, non-stop lies. And people who believe what he's saying need to be really shaken up and need to really open their eyes to the truth and real facts. And the fact that what's been cut off from us is information about the environment, true, honest EPA information, and reproductive rights and LGBTQ rights. Like, those things are access to information that we deserve, that we have the right to. And cutting that off from us, how could that be good? How could it? Because you don't want the people who support you, because you don't want the people who, are so against helping people to know the facts, the real true facts that make it so crystal clear what's right and wrong. And how is that okay? How is that something that's happening? I will never understand people who put their fears and insecurities and prejudices and their hate in front of other people's happiness and other people's needs and safety. You're just so sure within your ignorance that you will bet your life on the fact and stake your life on the fact that these people who are different than you are so terrible. That doesn't really hold up. Do these people need someone to blame? Were they brainwashed? Do they hate their lives so much that they're just bullies on a really high scale? Is that what's going on? Because I can't see the reasoning. I just can't. No matter what your beliefs are, I can't seem to understand how people could support something that's against other people. Doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying people, like I said earlier, I'm not saying people need to be perfect, or no, I'm not saying every single person in the world should march or believe in what the march stands for. But I think the people who are against the march should really take a second look at what the march stands for and listen just a little bit better. I'm not saying you have to change your beliefs, but what should make your beliefs more important than mine? And I hope that everyone who watches this video is not okay with what's going on. And I don't want people to be unhappy, but I mean, I still don't understand how someone who's sexually assaulted women and been so cruel and selfish and non-stop lying and so pro-violence could be the person who's running this country. I don't get how that happened, and I don't get how people are in support of it still to this day. And maybe I, along with a lot of other people, were just really naive, and we thought that the world was doing a lot better. And I think, maybe we thought we were a lot more forward-thinking and progressive than we really were, and than we hoped we were. And it's a bummer that we were wrong. I don't want to start fights in the comments, and I don't want this to be kind of huge, statement video, but what I want to happen from this is maybe, just maybe, at least one person's eyes get a little bit open to what's going on, and one person even can kind of think, just because others are different than me and have different beliefs doesn't mean they're actually different. We're all just people. And instead of, I know a lot of people would say, let's put our differences aside and just worry about what's important, but let's not put our differences aside. That's the whole problem. We can't put our differences aside because our differences make us so unique. And I think what we need to do is embrace our differences and embrace the facts and learn the facts and do real research and just really, really care, because you can't really argue with honest facts, and people can try, but it doesn't really make sense. I think that no matter what your political party is, and no matter, what politicians you like and you don't like, and all of that, no matter who you hate and who you love, I think we should all be able to agree that we're all human. And that's what's important. No one of us is more worthy or less worthy of freedom and rights. And, no matter how much money we make, or what skin color we have, or what religion we are, or what gender we are, or what gender we identify with, or what sexuality we are, no matter any of those things, we share this planet, and whether people like it or not, that is a fact. And it's undeniable. We should be working to save the environment and to save this world for the people who live here, because whether it's the environment or equal rights for all people or access to healthcare or anything, for every one person that cares, there's another million people that don't. This is kind of the way I get my parents to recycle. I tell them, for every one person that recycles and worries about recycling, there's another 1,000 people that don't. And for every one person who only recycles when it's convenient and not when, the recycling bin is 20 feet away, there's another 1,000 people who don't ever recycle. And that's sad and that's scary, because that's how it is, for all the people out there who do care, all the people who support the march and want to make a difference and, really help people. There's thousands of other people who just don't care. And I think that that's a problem. I think that if everyone in the world and in this country could just look at the facts, comprehend them, and understand them, that they wouldn't be able to make their beliefs matter more than what's true, And I think that something that's been said a lot in the last few months and the last year is that it's not our problem. People say, it's not my problem. How is, this teenage girl who was raped and pregnant now my problem? How is this woman who has a health defect and really shouldn't give birth because it could risk her life, how is that someone else's problem? How is an immigrant who wants to come to America for a better life, how is that someone else's problem? How is someone who can't afford health care, how is that the problem of someone who makes millions of dollars? People say that all the time. It's not my problem. And you know what? Maybe it's not their problem, but it should be.